What happens when an undercover CEO uncovers corruption right under her nose? Hello, amazing viewers. Today we're diving into the gripping story of Evelyn Carter, the visionary owner of the renowned culinary retreat, the Artisan's Haven. When complaints about exploitation and stifled creativity reached her ears, Evelyn decided to go undercover to uncover the truth. What she discovered was a shocking culture of control and favoritism led by her own head chef. But instead of turning away, Evelyn took bold steps to transform her business into a place where creativity and compassion could truly flourish. Stay tuned for this inspiring tale of change and redemption. Evelyn Carrington gazed out the expansive glass windows of her penthouse office, the bustling cityscape of New York reflected in her thoughtful, determined eyes. As the founder and CEO of Evergreen Heights Retreat, she had built her hospitality brand from the ground up, transforming a modest mountain resort into a luxurious, highly sought-after destination known for its serene beauty and impeccable service. Evelyn prided herself on running a company founded on principles of fairness, integrity, and exceptional care, not only for guests but for her employees. However, recent troubling reports had shaken her confidence. Complaints had surfaced about unethical treatment of staff, payroll manipulation, and severe exploitation of housekeeping workers at her flagship resort nestled high in the serene Blue Ridge Mountains. The grievances were varied but consistent: reduced hours for those who dared to voice concerns, off-the-clock labor forced upon the most vulnerable workers, and systemic intimidation designed to keep employees in silent compliance. Evelyn's attempts to address these issues through her management team had been met with resistance and apathy. Arthur Dane, the resort manager, a man who had once impressed her with his ambition and efficiency, dismissed her concerns as exaggerated, fabricated by disgruntled employees looking for excuses. "These people always find something to complain about," Arthur had said with a shrug, his tone dripping with condescension. "They're lazy, Evelyn, always looking for shortcuts." His cavalier dismissal only stoked Evelyn's frustration. She had trusted Arthur to uphold her standards of integrity and respect, but his attitude betrayed an indifference that she could no longer tolerate. Instead of investigating the issues, he had chosen to cover them up. Evelyn knew she couldn't simply rely on her subordinates' reports, especially when they were so blatantly biased. To get to the bottom of these disturbing allegations, Evelyn realized she would have to see the truth for herself. And so she made a decision that would change the course of her company forever. She would go undercover, immersing herself in the daily lives of her employees to uncover the reality hidden behind polished presentations and corporate platitudes. It was a risky, unconventional move, but Evelyn was nothing if not determined. As she packed away her tailored suits and slipped into modest, practical attire, Evelyn prepared to abandon her life of luxury, at least temporarily. The decision was made. She would arrive at Evergreen Heights Retreat not as its powerful owner, but as a nameless, low-level worker eager for a chance to prove herself. It was time to confront the truth, no matter how painful or shocking it might be. Helen arrived at Evergreen Heights Retreat under the guise of Helen Moore, a middle-aged woman seeking employment as a housekeeper. Her transformation was thorough. Hair dyed to a dull chestnut brown, complexion weathered with subtle makeup, and posture slightly hunched to reflect years of hard labor. Wearing simple clothes and worn-out shoes, she looked nothing like the poised, commanding CEO known in the corporate world. Checking in at the resort's back entrance, Evelyn applied for the job through the standard, impersonal process Arthur Dane had implemented. The receptionist barely glanced at her application before handing her a faded uniform and directing her to the housekeeping supervisor, Margaret Ruiz. Margaret, a woman in her late 30s with sharp eyes softened by kindness, explained the daily routines with a professionalism that impressed Evelyn. Yet there was a wariness in her gaze, a subtle tension suggesting she too carried the weight of the resort's oppressive environment. Assigned to a small, cramped room in the resort's staff quarters, Evelyn quickly noticed the stark contrast between the luxurious guest accommodations and the dingy, neglected living conditions provided to her workers. Her first shift began before dawn, scrubbing floors, making beds, and cleaning bathrooms with a vigor that left her muscles aching. The tasks themselves were grueling, but Evelyn found herself more disturbed by the strained expressions of her fellow workers. faces etched with exhaustion, frustration, and resignation. Whispers of unpaid overtime, threats of dismissal, and deliberate manipulation of schedules to minimize paychecks circulated in the cramped break room where the workers gathered for brief, tense moments of rest. Evelyn listened carefully, her heart sinking with each new revelation. Evelyn's anonymity allowed her to blend seamlessly with the staff, overhearing conversations she would never have been privy to as the CEO. She made an effort to earn their trust, working tirelessly alongside them and offering a sympathetic ear when they needed to vent their frustrations. It became clear to Evelyn that the problem ran far deeper than she'd imagined. The exploitation wasn't just an isolated incident, it was a culture of fear and mistreatment that had been allowed to fester under Arthur's watchful eye. With each shift, Evelyn's resolve hardened. She would uncover the truth and put an end to the corruption poisoning her beloved resort. As Evelyn settled into her role as Helen, the daily grind at Evergreen Heights Retreat provided her with ample opportunity to observe the staff dynamics. Working alongside them day in and day out, she quickly noticed the clear divide between those who worked the hardest and those who held authority. The housekeepers were predominantly women from low-income backgrounds, some juggling 2 or more jobs to support their families. They moved through their tasks with practiced efficiency, but also with a stiffness born from relentless work and minimal rest. Among them, Margaret Ruiz, the housekeeping supervisor, stood out not just for her diligence, but for her quiet empathy. Margaret was stern when necessary, but her kindness shone through in the small gestures she extended to her subordinates, sharing snacks during their short breaks or swapping shifts to help those with family emergencies. Evelyn respected her immediately. Margaret introduced Evelyn to the others, their weary faces softening slightly as they accepted her into their routines. Through casual conversations during breaks or while folding sheets together, Evelyn learned more about her colleagues. Rosa, a mother of 3, often recounted her struggles with Arthur Dane's oppressive policies, particularly his habit of cutting hours without warning to avoid paying overtime. Linda, a teenager fresh out of high school, admitted she'd been coerced into working extra shifts without proper compensation, terrified of being fired if she refused. Anwar, a quiet man in his 50s, who had been with the resort for over a decade, spoke bitterly of how his experience and loyalty were disregarded whenever he dared to question discrepancies in his paycheck. It was during one of these conversations that Evelyn's attention was drawn to Riley, a timid, soft-spoken woman in her mid-20s. Riley's slender frame and pale complexion suggested she hadn't been eating well, and her eyes carried a haunted look Evelyn couldn't ignore. As they mopped the expansive lobby one night, Riley opened up about her predicament. She had been forced to work overtime multiple times without pay, her wages constantly docked for mistakes, Arthur exaggerated. Worse, Riley confessed that Arthur had threatened to fire her outright when she dared to ask about the missing pay. Evelyn felt her anger simmering beneath the surface, but she remained composed, urging Riley to document her experiences. Margaret, too, had her own struggles. She confessed to Evelyn one evening that Arthur frequently undermined her authority, overriding her decisions and reprimanding her whenever she advocated for better treatment of her staff. "He doesn't care about us," Margaret said, her tone weary but resolute. "As long as the guests are happy and the profits keep rolling in, we're nothing but tools to be discarded when we break." Evelyn absorbed her words, her heart heavy with a combination of anger and sadness. These were hard-working, talented people, reduced to mere numbers under Arthur's rule. Each conversation Evelyn had with the staff only solidified her determination to expose the exploitation and restore the resort's original mission of inclusivity and fairness. Her observations confirmed what she feared. Arthur had betrayed everything Evergreen Heights Retreat was meant to stand for. As Evelyn continued her undercover work at Evergreen Heights Retreat, her initial suspicions deepened into concrete evidence of exploitation and abuse. It became apparent that Arthur Dane's negligence went beyond mere incompetence. It was a deliberate strategy to maximize profits at the expense of the resort's most vulnerable employees. Evelyn kept meticulous notes, her disguised identity as Helen allowing her to witness firsthand the alarming extent of Arthur's corruption. She began to see a disturbing pattern, wages being withheld or mysteriously reduced, particularly for those who worked the longest shifts. Employees like Rosa and Anwar had come to expect pay discrepancies every month, their complaints either ignored or met with thinly veiled threats of termination. When Evelyn casually asked about their payroll system, Margaret explained with a grimace, "Arthur controls everything. We never see a breakdown of our hours, just a total. And if we question it, we're told to be grateful we have jobs at all." The intimidation tactics Arthur employed were blatant and systematic. Workers who dared to question their missing wages were assigned the least desirable shifts, demoted without explanation, or dismissed outright. Rosa tearfully admitted that she was forced to take out loans just to make ends meet after Arthur had slashed her hours following a dispute over unpaid overtime. Linda recounted her experience of being locked in a storage room as a punishment for daring to ask for her paycheck to be corrected. Even Margaret, who held a supervisory position, found herself constantly battling Arthur's whims. "He tells me I'm too soft," Margaret confided one evening, "that if I keep trying to fight for the others, I'll be out of a job just like them." Her eyes reflected both defiance and exhaustion, a weariness Evelyn recognized all too well. The worst of it came from Riley. Over the course of several late-night shifts, Evelyn pieced together the full horror of what the young woman had endured. Arthur had targeted Riley specifically, knowing her desperation and fragile health made her less likely to protest against his manipulation. Riley's wages were consistently short, her overtime hours erased entirely from the logs Arthur kept, and when she tried to address the discrepancies, he responded with cruelty. "He told me I was lucky to even be working here," Riley whispered, her eyes brimming with tears. "That people like me don't have the right to demand anything." Evelyn's stomach churned with rage and disgust. Arthur's callousness extended beyond financial exploitation. He thrived on emotional manipulation and control. Evelyn also uncovered a paper trail of fraudulent bookkeeping practices Arthur had established to cover his tracks. He doctored payroll logs, modified employee schedules to falsely reflect fewer hours, and created an illusion of compliance that would appear legitimate to any casual observer. But Evelyn was no casual observer. She made copies of the falsified documents, documenting everything meticulously. What she had gathered was damning. It was clear that Arthur had constructed a system designed to exploit his workers and suppress their voices. Every revelation fueled her determination to bring him to justice and restore the integrity of Evergreen Heights Retreat. As Evelyn compiled her evidence, she realized the scope of the corruption was far more extensive than she had anticipated. And with every piece of proof she gathered, her resolve only strengthened. The day of reckoning arrived sooner than Evelyn anticipated. With her carefully gathered evidence in hand, Evelyn arranged a meeting with the resort's upper management, including Arthur Dane. She chose the central meeting hall of Evergreen Heights Retreat, a pristine, airy space filled with polished wooden furniture and expansive windows that framed the tranquil forest outside. Its elegance stood in sharp contrast to the injustice happening beneath its roof. Evelyn, still dressed as Helen, her hair tied back in a simple braid and her attire that of a modest housekeeper, entered the hall with an air of calm resolve. Arthur lounged arrogantly at the head of the conference table, flanked by a few of his loyal supervisors. His condescending smirk faltered when Evelyn's assistant, Marissa, introduced her as the owner of the resort. The room fell silent as Evelyn pulled a sleek black folder from her bag, its contents brimming with evidence she had meticulously compiled over the past weeks. She began by recounting the stories of the staff she had befriended. Riley's manipulated overtime hours, Rosa's unjustly reduced wages, Linda's wrongful confinement, and Margaret's constant harassment for trying to protect her colleagues. Evelyn's voice remained steady, but her eyes burned with righteous anger as she laid out each case, her words clear and precise. Arthur's complexion paled as Evelyn produced payroll logs, photographs of altered schedules, and recorded testimonies from employees who had suffered under his ruthless management. Evelyn's calm, factual delivery was like a blade slicing through the room's stifling tension. She made it clear that her investigation had been thorough, her documentation comprehensive. "You've created a hostile, exploitative work environment under the guise of efficiency and profit," Evelyn stated, her gaze locked on Arthur's trembling form. "You've not only violated the basic rights of these workers, but have also tarnished the very foundation of what Evergreen Heights Retreat was meant to be, a sanctuary of fairness and respect. Arthur attempted to interrupt, his voice cracking as he fumbled for an explanation. "This is all a misunderstanding, Miss Carter. Surely we can—" "No," Evelyn interrupted sharply. "What you've done goes beyond incompetence. It's willful exploitation, and I have every intention of holding you accountable." Her words struck with the force of a hammer, leaving Arthur visibly shaken. His composure unraveled further as Evelyn continued, revealing how his deceptive bookkeeping practices had been uncovered, documented, and prepared for formal review. Arthur's desperation grew evident as he glanced at his fellow supervisors for support, but their eyes were fixed firmly on the table, unwilling to defend his corruption now that his schemes had been exposed. Evelyn concluded her presentation by distributing copies of her findings to each person in the room. "I've already contacted the board of directors. They are expecting a full report within the week. Effective immediately, Arthur Dane, you are dismissed from your position. Security will escort you off the premises." Arthur's mouth opened and closed soundlessly, his arrogance crumbling under the weight of Evelyn's revelation. As security guards entered the hall to remove him, Evelyn's expression remained calm, her authority undeniable. She had come to Evergreen Heights Retreat expecting to find neglect. Instead, she had unearthed deliberate cruelty. But her work was far from over. Now, it was time to rebuild. With Arthur Dane removed from his position, Evelyn wasted no time implementing immediate changes at Evergreen Heights Retreat. She assembled the remaining supervisors, along with her assistant Marissa, in a follow-up meeting designed not to reprimand, but to rebuild. Evelyn began by acknowledging the fear and frustration that had taken root within the resort's workforce, and she promised a new era of fairness, transparency, and respect. She laid out her vision clearly, establishing a new chain of command that prioritized communication, worker welfare, and equitable treatment for all employees. To reinforce her commitment, Evelyn instituted an open-door policy, encouraging staff members to voice their concerns directly to her or Marissa without fear of retaliation. Recognizing that the damage inflicted by Arthur's regime could not be undone overnight, Evelyn also introduced structural changes aimed at fostering a healthier work environment. She mandated weekly check-ins between management and staff, allowing grievances to be addressed before they could escalate. Evelyn also arranged for external auditors to review payroll practices and scheduling procedures, ensuring that manipulations like those Arthur had orchestrated could never occur again. This third-party oversight provided not only accountability, but also reassurance to the employees that their complaints would be taken seriously. Evelyn took particular care to reach out to those who had suffered most under Arthur's management. She met privately with Rosa, Riley, Linda, Margaret, and others who had been mistreated, offering sincere apologies and restitution where needed. Rosa's wages were corrected, Riley's hours reinstated, and Linda was provided with mental health resources to help her overcome the anxiety Arthur had inflicted upon her. Evelyn also offered Margaret a formal position overseeing employee welfare, recognizing her dedication and bravery in standing up against corruption. Furthermore, Evelyn initiated a comprehensive training program for all supervisors and department heads, emphasizing empathy, communication, and ethical leadership. This new approach aimed to build a culture of inclusivity and respect from the ground up. By the end of the week, the atmosphere at Evergreen Heights Retreat had already begun to shift. Workers who once avoided eye contact with management now greeted Evelyn with cautious but genuine smiles. Though there was much work left to do, Evelyn's determination remained unshaken. She had rooted out corruption. Now it was time to cultivate something better. After restructuring management and implementing policies to promote fairness, Evelyn turned her attention to Lila, the young chef whose passion for culinary arts had nearly been extinguished by Arthur's oppressive regime. Lila had been ostracized and manipulated, her creativity stifled by unreasonable demands and condescending critiques. Evelyn had noticed Lila's reluctance to speak during the meetings, and her tendency to avoid eye contact whenever Arthur's name was mentioned. Determined to restore Lila's confidence, Evelyn arranged a private meeting with her in the resort's newly refurbished kitchen. During their conversation, Evelyn encouraged Lila to share her experiences and frustrations without fear of judgment. At first, Lila's voice trembled as she recounted the constant pressure to conform to Arthur's outdated standards, the dismissal of her innovative ideas, and the emotional toll of being undermined at every turn. Evelyn listened intently, her expression soft and reassuring. "Your creativity is what makes this place special," Evelyn said gently. "I want you to feel empowered to experiment, to create, and to shine." Moved by Evelyn's sincerity, Lila slowly opened up, her hesitation giving way to a flood of ideas she had kept bottled up for months. She spoke of menus inspired by local ingredients, fusion dishes that blended traditional flavors with modern techniques, and themed dining experiences that could transform the retreat's culinary reputation. Evelyn's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm as Lila shared her dreams. "Let's make that happen," Evelyn encouraged, her words laced with genuine excitement. Evelyn went beyond mere words, providing Lila with the resources and creative freedom she had been denied under Arthur's rule. She granted Lila the authority to redesign the menu, experiment with new dishes, and even host tasting events to gather feedback from guests and staff. Additionally, Evelyn ensured that Lila received mentorship and professional development opportunities to further refine her skills. The change in Lila was palpable. Freed from the constraints of Arthur's toxic management, her confidence blossomed, and her culinary talents flourished. Her newfound energy and creativity quickly became a highlight of the resort's guest experience. Watching Lila reclaim her passion filled Evelyn with a profound sense of fulfillment. The journey was far from over, but knowing that she had helped Lila find her voice was a victory Evelyn cherished deeply. With Arthur's toxic influence removed and Lila's creativity reignited, Evelyn wasted no time in restoring the resort to its former glory. She understood that the key to reviving the Golden Sands Resort lay in rekindling the spirit of collaboration and excellence that had once defined its reputation. Evelyn implemented comprehensive changes across all departments, prioritizing transparency, fairness, and creativity. Weekly staff meetings became open forums where everyone's voice could be heard, their ideas respected and valued. She introduced regular training sessions focused on skill development, customer service excellence, and leadership principles rooted in empathy and integrity. Evelyn also reached out to former employees who had left under Arthur's oppressive rule, inviting them back to be part of the resort's renewal. Their experience and passion were instrumental in rebuilding the resort's standards, particularly in areas Arthur had neglected. In addition, Evelyn partnered with local artists, chefs, and wellness experts to diversify the retreat's offerings, transforming the Golden Sands Resort into a vibrant, inclusive destination that celebrated innovation and authenticity. The menus curated by Lila became a signature attraction, featuring seasonal dishes that highlighted the region's unique flavors. Beyond operational improvements, Evelyn focused on fostering a positive work culture where employees felt genuinely appreciated and empowered. She implemented recognition programs to celebrate achievements, big and small, and ensured that everyone received fair compensation for their hard work. The shift in morale was undeniable. Smiles returned to faces that had once been burdened by stress and fear. As word spread of the resort's revitalization, guests returned with renewed enthusiasm, impressed by the remarkable improvements in service, atmosphere, and creativity. The Golden Sands Resort flourished once again, its reputation rebuilt on principles of integrity and collaboration. Evelyn's leadership had not only restored the resort's prestige, but had also created a thriving community where everyone felt valued. The Golden Sands Resort was no longer just a luxurious retreat. It was a testament to Evelyn's unwavering commitment to justice, innovation, and compassion. Months after Evelyn's transformative intervention, the culinary retreat had become a beacon of innovation, creativity, and ethical leadership. Under Evelyn's guidance, the resort embraced a fresh vision where talent was nurtured rather than stifled. Guests flocked to the retreat, captivated not only by the picturesque setting, but by the bold, innovative dishes Lila and her team prepared. The new menus, inspired by local ingredients and infused with Lila's creativity, had drawn acclaim from visitors and critics alike. Evelyn's decision to empower her staff and prioritize their well-being had revitalized the resort's reputation and profitability. The departure of Arthur and the introduction of transparent policies fostered a collaborative environment where employees felt valued and respected. Evelyn ensured that training sessions, open forums, and mentorship programs continued, strengthening the culture of inclusivity and growth. Leela, now recognized as the resort's executive chef, led her kitchen team with confidence and passion, mentoring new talent and inspiring creativity throughout the entire operation. Her journey from disillusionment to fulfillment had become a testament to Evelyn's dedication to restoring integrity and compassion to the resort's leadership. Evelyn also made efforts to reconnect with the staff members who had previously left the resort under Arthur's harsh management. Several talented chefs, housekeepers, and groundskeepers returned, drawn by the resort's renewed commitment to fairness and collaboration. Evelyn's proactive approach to listening and implementing constructive feedback reinforced her reputation as a leader who genuinely cared about her team's well-being. The positive changes were evident not only in guest reviews but also in the renewed sense of camaraderie among the staff. Evelyn had achieved her goal of turning the retreat into a place where passion and creativity thrived. Her leadership had proven that success was not solely about financial gain, but about creating an environment where everyone could contribute their best. As Evelyn stood on the terrace overlooking the serene landscape, she felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The retreat had finally become the haven of creativity and excellence she had always envisioned, and she knew her work had made a lasting difference. The story of Evelyn Carter's journey to restore integrity at her culinary retreat offers a powerful lesson about ethical leadership, compassion, and the importance of valuing creativity over control. By going undercover, Evelyn discovered the toxic management style of Arthur, who prioritized profit and conformity over nurturing true talent. This experience demonstrated that success built on exploitation and stifling innovation is unsustainable and ultimately damaging to both individuals and the organization as a whole. Evelyn's decision to empower her employees by providing mentorship, transparency, and creative freedom proved that leadership rooted in empathy and fairness fosters a thriving, collaborative environment. Her efforts to actively listen to her staff, address their concerns, and promote a culture of growth and inclusivity demonstrated that the most valuable asset of any institution is its people. Additionally, Evelyn's commitment to fostering open dialogue and rebuilding trust among her employees highlighted the importance of accountability and continuous improvement. Her story serves as a reminder that true success is measured not just by financial gains, but by the positive impact leadership can have on those it serves. Ultimately, Evelyn's transformation of the retreat proves that integrity, compassion, and creativity are the true cornerstones of lasting success.